Welcome back to Unstable. I am Jeff Steckel, aka Big Steck, and it's the 41st episode. I've been with you all 41 episodes. Um, with me, for some reason, is Curtis. That's right, Curtis Brown of the Curtis Podcast Network, holding it down over at That Real Texas Team podcast, and of course, the host of this AFC South show. How are you doing, man?
Doing well, man. Excited to be here. Again, don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. Excited to be here. But, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time.
He's going to rep the Bills for us. No, I'm kidding. No, it's basically so I just don't have to talk to myself for half an hour and you get someone to kind of rein in my ADHD for a little bit. A little housekeeping. We're still stuck at 69. I don't know if that's on purpose by you guys or like it'll be funny keep him at 69, but we are trying to grow. I've hit a subscribe goal of 100. Appreciate your help us get there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the little notification bell. And are we going live tonight with this AFC South show or recording?
We'll probably record.
Record. Okay. So they might come out the same day. I don't know. But just whenever you're watching this, hop on over to this AFC South show, give that a like, share, subscribe. And if for some reason you're a Texans fan here, go over to That Real Texas Team podcast, do the same. We appreciate everybody's support. We're going to be talking about the Bills, upcoming Bills game at home in Lucas Oil. Noon, 12 or 1 game, wherever you're at. And yeah, I got confused last time. For some reason, they were talking about the game that got flexed, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're playing the Jets. No, that's next week. We got the Bills.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can't say I blame them for that one, but unfortunate. I don't here in Houston. I don't get to see the Colts a lot, except basically when they play Houston or primetime, and they got no primetime game. So,
not anymore.
The one time I saw them, it was I ended it, I think, with the Joe Flacco pick. So. It's just there are some games where like, man, they're going to come back in this one, or there's a good chance, and it's just at no point in that game was I like, I didn't feel good about a 7-0 lead at halftime.
Yeah, and this game against another division leading team doesn't bode well for the Colts.
No, it doesn't. Practice report. I'm gonna go, I guess, look at some injuries. Michael Pittman hasn't been participating. He hasn't practiced the last couple of days. So Friday will kind of be the telltale if he goes. I honestly say let him sit. I don't see any reason to run him out there. He didn't look good against the Vikings. He looked kind of slow, and he's been fighting a back injury. So if he's not at least 85, 90%, I would say let him rest it. There's just no reason to put him out there. Zaire Franklin, how do you say his name? Gonclaves, the tackle, who filled in, if I'm not mistaken, for Ryman. I think he's come back. He's off concussion protocol. He's fully participated. Odengbo full, and Braden Smith full. The big shock is Ryan Kelly at center. He got put on the shelf for at least 4 weeks. I've been speculating for the last year or so if this will be his last year, and this injury, I didn't even see it in the game, to be honest. I didn't know. It was a shock to most of us that he got put on injured reserve. So I hope it doesn't end that way. I really don't. Like, he's obviously our longest tenured Colt, so I hope he goes out. I hope it doesn't go out with an injury.
On his own terms.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of had up and down. His family had, obviously the issue with, losing it. I think she had a miscarriage, which is, I've been through it. It sucks to say the least, but they had a baby. So he's had his ups and downs. He's had issues staying off the injury report too. So I just hope, like Curtis just said, that he goes out on his own terms. He deserves that at least. And It seems like the Bills have quite a long injury report, but for the most part, they look healthy. I mean, most of the people fully participated. The only one that didn't was Keon Coleman. A few limiteds, Amari Cooper, Gilliam, Hollins, Curtis Samuel, Elam were all limited, but but for the most, it's a really long injury report, but most fully practiced. So I don't think there's too many concerns with the Bills. So it looks like we're getting a pretty healthy Bills team too. Yeah.
Well, outside of Amari Cooper, I feel like you can go one-on-one with a lot of those guys because they're either younger, unheralded, never lived up to the hype, or whatever in that wide receiver core. I mean, Houston, not maybe the best defense in the AFC South, but it's not a high bar to have at the moment. Held Josh Allen to 10 completions on 31 attempts.
I no faith in this Colts defense to do that. At least the secondary. Like, I've got no faith in them to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, look, the Bills' offensive line isn't great, and you guys do have a pretty stout front four, capable of creating a lot of pressure. The problem is Josh Allen doesn't get sacked very often, even though he's one of the more pressured quarterbacks in the league. But you guys have absolute mammoths on the interior in DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. Those two guys should be able to bring him down if they can get their paws on him, but he's a slippery one for as big as he is. And, to me, this is a winnable game. You just got to stop Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, and Dalton Kincaid.
And James Cook.
Well,
he's honestly my biggest he's my biggest concern in this game, to be honest. The Colts have had a history of this year of not being able to really do anything against running backs. And they have Josh Allen, as we know, is fairly mobile, which is another issue that the Colts have had. I mean, even what was it? Malik Willis kind of punished him. Justin Fields, I think he had a couple, if I'm not mistaken, rushing touchdowns in that game. But Josh Allen with his legs presents a big problem for this team. So if they never followed my advice, I don't know, Shane Steichen or Gus Bradley, they never watched the show. Obviously they're not one of the subscribers, but I have said many times, man, the only way the Colts are going to win these games is in the trenches. They have to keep possession. Their defense is on the field way too long. Jonathan Taylor, they're going to have to get first downs. They're going to have to run the ball. And every game has been a close game, and they just insist on dropping either AR or Flacco 30, 40 times a game. And it's just, you're going to have all these 3 and outs if you're doing that. And that's not going to win you games. And it's like with Josh Allen, you got to keep him on the sidelines. And I have no faith that Shane's like, his play calling has frustrated a lot of us. And I've in that contest, I have to give the nod to McDermott. Like, I feel like he's right now the better coach. I feel like this game's going to come down to coaching and in the front, in the trenches. So,
yeah, I mean, it's where the AFC South lives and dies, the trenches. Fortunately for the Colts, they have one of the better offensive lines in the South, if not the best, and one of the better defensive lines in the South, if not the best. They're just not playing very well as a unit on defense. And it's clear when you look at the passing stats, the rushing stats against this Colts team that, Gus Bradley is changing some shit up a little bit, but it's not enough. Like, Bradley's got like a very particular way that he runs it, a lot of zone, a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 3. And even on occasion, he's dropped back into a prevent way too soon, basically a drop 4. And it doesn't make sense. They're allowing, they're attempting to bend but don't break defense, but they're bending too much and breaking. And to beat Josh Allen, you've got to have just a modicum of efficiency on offense, which to this point the Colts have not had. I mean, you get Jonathan Taylor going, but then for whatever reason, the passing game usually isn't also going or in any sort of a rhythm at that point. Or if you get the passing game going, Jonathan Taylor's usually not very involved in the game at all. You've got Anthony Richardson there who's able to simulate and practice what Josh Allen's going to do. If they're smart, he's using that scout team rep as basically like, all right, guys, I'm gonna prove that I'm better than my completion percentage, and do my thing while trying to impersonate Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen's going to make mistakes. He's going to. It's just, he's made less this year than he has any other year in his career, but he will make mistakes. And if you guys can capitalize on it, you'll be in good shape. If you can't, this game could look real sideways real quick. The way it went with the Jaguars and the Titans could very well be how it goes for the Colts. I don't necessarily think that. I think this is a better team than both of those other teams. You should be able to field a pretty good effort against this Colts team.
I think what makes me the most nervous is, the Colts and Jags had a really good game, 3-point game, very high scoring game. And the Colts defense was just like the Jaguars defense. It was atrocious. And the Bills came out and just absolutely stomped Jacksonville. And I know every week is different. You can't really use that as a meter, like, oh, this team beat that team, so therefore they should beat this team. That's just not how it goes. Logically, if the Texans beat, the Dolphins, you know what I'm saying? And if the Colts beat the Texans, logically they should be able to beat the Dolphins, which is not how shit works. But just watching how Buffalo trounced Jacksonville after it was such a close, high-scoring game, man, that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
They got Amari Cooper. The Colts had a lot. I'm not saying Cooper is Justin Jefferson, but he's not a bad receiver.
No.
It's very concerning that they got as much pressure as they did with Darnold, which was a complete 180 from other games. They were all over Darnold. They were in the backfield. I think Latu had a hand on him a few times, forced him out of the pocket. That sack by Grover, just tossing him like a rag doll to the ground, probably should have been a penalty. But, they did everything they could, and he still only had like 6 incompletions. That's just shitty secondary play. The front did exactly what I've expected it to do all year, and they finally showed up, and it still wasn't enough. So and those are the things that you have to do. You have to finish the play. Like if your front delivers, the back end has to, and they don't. So, and there were some plays where they had, Womack on Jefferson, so they didn't even have safety help, made no sense. It's things like that with this defense. There was, who was their tight end? Hawkinson. He finally came back in that game. A couple times he was just wide open. I mean, outside of Jefferson, he's the guy that should be circled. Jefferson wide open. He has a knack of doing that, but Hawkinson wide open, Addison wide open on some play. It's like the amount of cushion that they were giving them. You can't do that against Josh Allen. He's gonna pick you apart all day. So, and I don't really have any faith in the secondary to be able to improve from the Vikings game. So that front is going to have to be even better, and the offense is going to have to keep the ball. But they've also shown that they can't do that either. So, like you said, this game could get very one-sided very quickly if the Colts don't put it together finally. And we're halfway through the season and they haven't. So I don't mean to sound all negative on this one. I'm just a realist. Like I wish I could say Colts by 40, but I have no confidence in that to happen. I have a strong belief that if the Colts aren't up by like 17 at the half, that it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that's plagued all AFC South teams is we usually play a pretty good first half. Second half can't do much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
The only real exception to that is when we're playing each other for whatever reason. But I mean, the Texans played the Bills basically just the same as you just described. I think it was 17-3, 17-7 at halftime, and then we ended up beating them 23-20.
Mm-hmm.
they're one of the teams that's definitely going to make pretty strong adjustments after halftime, and they're going to give you a run for your money no matter how many points you put up.
Mhm.
But this is a better team than people give them credit for. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Stephon Diggs left. This Bills team, they don't have much." Blah blah blah. With not a lot, they are 7-2. They have swept the Dolphins. Maybe Tua didn't play the entirety of the first game, but he played the entirety of the second one and couldn't get it done.
Mhm.
This is a good team. This would be a great way of getting the Colts organization kind of like refocused, pushing for the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I mean, realistically, you got to get Jonathan Taylor going. This run team, this run defense for the Bills is not all that great.
Yeah.
And if you can rely on the running game and then hit play action off of it, you should be able to find some pretty good openings. They have some younger dudes in the secondary, including a guy who's died already once and is now back. But again, this is a winnable game. This is a very winnable game. It's you just got to throw some trickery in there, Gus
Mhm.
Bradley. You got to mix it up.
Yeah. If I'm Gus Bradley, I'm kind of looking at because if you look at how Joe Flacco played in that game, you could tell he was confused. Like they were checking out of obvious blitzes, they were going into blitzes that you didn't see coming. He was bringing a lot of creative stuff, and that's not something Gus Bradley does a lot of. Like you can tell if he's about to blitz, you can tell if he's going to drop back. Like they show their hand. They're bad poker players.
Yes.
They don't bluff. They don't. there's really no trickery. It's a defense that relies on the secondary to make plays, and they don't have the players to do it. So I'm not really sure why at this point Gus Bradley keeps doing the same thing. I mean, it's the definition of insanity. You don't have the players in the secondary outside of Kenny Moore, Zaire Franklin. Their linebackers are playing fine. Of course,
Yeah.
Kenny Moore is their best corner, but he can't cover everybody.
Right.
So it's you've got to understand that the only way that you're going to win on defense is with pressure. And I'm like I said, I was okay with Grover Stewart. I was okay if you got that 15-yard penalty. I was okay with it, even though the result would have been a touchdown. I thought it was a penalty. I fully expected to come back 15-yard. I fully expected it. I'm surprised they picked it up.
Yeah.
But I was okay with it. And I'm like, at least you're hitting the damn quarterback. I was fine with it. Let Josh Allen know you're there. I preach it every game, and it seems like all game he's bringing four, and hoping that they win. And when they're not, he doesn't do anything else. So I'm not really expecting him to change it up at this point. I'm just like you said. I'm hoping that they have kind of a focus on Cook, get in the backfield, run Jonathan Taylor, get him going in some way. And I've actually called for more creativity out of Shane. Maybe use Anthony Richardson on a few plays, like they used Taysom Hill and on the Saints. You could do some creative stuff with that, a little bit of trickery here and there. Just if nothing else, just kind of like, okay, at least we have to focus a guy on Richardson. Is he going to run it? Like there's that
Yeah.
there. And it's like, okay, if you want to take a deep shot, kind of a flea flicker thing with, he hands it off to Taylor, he tosses it back to Rich. It's just something, just to maybe throw off the defense a little bit. So I feel like you could still involve him in some way. And I guess talking about Richardson, I appreciated, I said in the last pod, I liked the fact that he was standing on the sideline with his helmet on. People were dogging him, you're not coming into the game, sit your ass down. And he's ready. I appreciate that. If he's going to stand there, helmet on, the whole time he's looking at his play sheet just so he knows what's going on in the game. He wasn't just sitting on the bench moping with his helmet off like a lot of other players would do. He's standing there. He was the last person to go into the tunnel. I appreciate stuff like that. So he hasn't folded it in. The Colts were getting calls about him. They told him to F off. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still feel like that there's still a place for Anthony Richardson, maybe in 25, maybe they're trying to develop him more this year and see where they're at then. They could have traded him if they wanted to. There were inquiries. They could have done it. Maybe, obviously, probably not for any first or second rounders, but if they wanted to be done with him, they could have traded him. So I don't think they've given up on him. he just there's obviously a lot of room for him to improve, and people are already talking about making the switch, and it's probably not going to happen barring an injury. I mean, it's the organization doesn't look good right now, but you can't bench him, put Flacco, bench Flacco, bring out. There's got to be some consistency, almost to a fault.
Yep.
It just is what it is at this point. So unless if Flacco gets hurt, I would expect to not see Anthony Richardson going forward, unless if Flacco just lays the biggest dud you've ever seen, which was almost what he did in Minnesota. But it's, there's quarterback controversy. We've had a lot of it, so it's just always going to be the topic of conversation with Colts fans. It is what it is at this point. And I understand it. We're all frustrated by it. We hate seeing. I mean, we like to see the CJ Stroud and these young quarterbacks doing well. I mean, he's had a couple of rough games, but he's had at least a season of success. He's had some really good games this year. And it's just frustrating to see Anthony Richardson struggle like this. You see Jaden Daniels in Washington doing really well. They have a lot more time under their belt, a lot more playing time, but it's like you almost have to question. Shane Steichen was brought in kind of as that quarterback guru, the guy that can mold someone like Richardson into an NFL quarterback, and we just haven't seen it. So we're all frustrated.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the things that I told you we talked about a lot when he got drafted was how much he would benefit from sitting and watching. And he came in and he started immediately last season, played basically 14 quarters or whatever of football. Finished 2 games of the 4 he started. And then was forced by injury to sit on the sidelines. Behind Gardner Minshew, who, as we talked ad nauseum, is maybe not the most qualified person that you want molding your quarterback. But now you bring in a Super Bowl champion, Joe Flacco. And to me, this is about as good as it gets when it comes to, sitting a young quarterback and letting them mold. And, he's done this before. He's done this a couple times.
Yep.
When he's the perfect guy to do it. I don't think he's necessarily going out of his way to teach Anthony Richardson anything. But if Anthony Richardson's as committed and as smart as it seems that he is, then he's calling Joe Flacco like, "Hey, man, I want to know why you threw the ball here when this was the coverage, or what you saw here. Why'd you change the blitz pickup to this?" And just literally worshiping at the altar that is Joe Flacco. He can do this. I think eventually he could be a fine quarterback in this league. It's just got to give him time. He needs to sit down and learn. He needs the game experience, obviously. I mean, he's only played, less than 30 games, including his senior year of high school. So, I get it. Yeah. He's not really gonna show a whole bunch of improvement already, but Jordan Love got to sit for 3 years. Aaron Rodgers got to sit for 3 years. Patrick Mahomes got to sit for a whole season.
Mm-hmm.
There's a method to the madness.
Yeah.
I in the grand scheme, this will help him.
Yeah, Tom Brady talked about it in depth about it, and he's like, it's just a shame that he feels that the NFL has really dumbed down the position, dumbed down the game. So these fresh out of college, 2-3 year college quarterbacks are coming in. We're kind of out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, and it's a lot of the quarterbacks that have been drafted top are all benched right now, and if you'll notice, it seems like statistically, quarterbacks aren't putting up the numbers that they used to. Like, you look back into the days of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, his heyday. You were pissed in fantasy football if Peyton Manning didn't get you 350 and 4 touchdowns. Like, that was just kind of the expectation. And now it's like, God, I hope he throws one.
Yeah.
Like if you go into any of these apps like Prize Picks, it's like, man, do I put Mahomes on 2 touchdowns? Like, are the defenses getting that much better, or quarterbacks just not at the level that we were used to?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I definitely think that the quarterback play has taken a little bit of a nosedive. We all expected once we went to 17 games that the 5,000-yard passing season would be a shoe-in every year for, half the league or whatever. And I still think only one quarterback's done it since going to the 17 games, and that's Mahomes.
Yeah.
And he barely did it. So I don't know. I also think the defenses are a lot faster than they were. I think the linebackers are built more for pass defense. I feel like there's a lot more freak athletes at the edge rusher position, specifically designed to make your running or your quarterback's life hell. And then you also have to factor in that we have a lot more running quarterbacks now than we did at any other point during Peyton and Drew and Andrew and Aaron.
I mean, there was like Cam Newton trickled in there, Michael Vick trickled in there,
Yeah, but
but
these
it wasn't a lot.
Right. We got Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray. I mean, we had Michael Vick, and then we had what's his nuts, Robert Griffin III at the same time.
And at times I would even have put like Luck in that category. He wasn't like primarily, or he wasn't a run first quarterback, but when he needed his legs, he'd get it done.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the Mahomes. Like he's not a run first guy, but
he can if he needs to.
But it was few and far between. Now it's like half the quarterbacks in the league are rushing quarterbacks. Even Joe Flacco had a nice run in one of those games. So it's almost the expectation at this point. Like you said, it's just really fast, physical, very athletic defensive linemen. It's almost you have to be able to like standing in the pocket is a detriment. You got to have a run game to go with it, and that's kind of my way of circling back to Flacco. He's a statue at times. It's hard for him to move around in the pocket. He's not that kind of player. He's old school. He's almost 40. Like He came into this league 18 years ago or something like that. This is a young man's game, Joe. But I mean, he has the arm to do it. It's just I don't know why Shane is just kind of pulling back from those deep passes. Like they didn't really take any shot. Alec Pierce is your guy. Like every once in a while, you got to throw it up there. Yeah. Like even if it's not, he's a guy that can go over a defender and get it. Like I feel like if it's 1-on-1, he can win those jump balls.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Take the shot, man.
I don't know. I just feel like generally speaking, there's been less deep shots, like league wide. Maybe that's again the defense. Maybe again that's the quarterbacks. Could just be, again maybe the defensive line is just kind of killing those opportunities. But it's just something we're not seeing a lot of right now. And it's that the deep shot is something we become so accustomed to as NFL fans because it's exciting. It's like, oh shit, he's loading up a 50-yard bomb. We see it every now and then, and we shit our pants, lose our minds every time that fucking happens. But then they miss by like 7 yards, and we're like,
yeah.
Well,
I lost my shit when I saw that bomb that Anthony Richards threw in week 1. That had like 70 air yards. Like that was retarded. Yeah. And for it to be as accurate as it was I wouldn't like. I know Isaiah mentioned on this AFC South show. If you think that's the expectation, I don't think that's the expectation. But damn, dude, if it happened once, you gotta go back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like he's just being so conservative and overthinking things. Like just let your guys play, and it just seems like he's reining them in to not lose. And that's when you start losing games. Like you're not playing to win. You're playing. I just don't want to lose. Yeah. And that's when shit goes haywire. And I think that's kind of the concept with Ballard. Like maybe going after Snead Like I don't think he's really done very good in Tennessee since Tennessee traded for him. It might have been the right choice not to go for the trade for him, but it's like, damn, dude, just you're gonna miss on something. But if you don't do it, you don't take that risk to go after somebody, you're not gonna hit anything. Like you know what you've got in house. You just didn't want to give up a little bit of draft capital. And it's I argue this in the draft. He has had a history of being aggressive. He was aggressive with the first round pick to get Buckner. He was aggressive to move up in the second where he got Jonathan Taylor. But since then, he hasn't really done anything. It's like I feel like this draft could have been the time to go because what was it? Cooper DeJean and McKinstry were both available early in the second. It's like, yeah, it's a risk to move up and get them, but 3 of our picks from the draft aren't even on the team anymore, the practice squad. So there was capital there that you could have moved. It's like they didn't work. They might not have panned out, but you needed a corner. There's a glaring need, and it's almost like he's doing his job to not lose it.
Yeah.
Like I have to be conservative. I don't want you're not going to keep your job doing that either.
No. And I think the conservatism not only has affected Ballard's job, I think it's affected the way that Steichen's running the actual games. That's why we're not seeing the deep shots because, sometimes they hit and they're electric. Sometimes they miss and it's crap, it sucks. Anthony Richardson made it a thing where it's like you're living and dying by it. That entire first game he literally only lived by the deep pass.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you can't use that as a crutch every now and then, but it is something that eventually teams will take away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's happened. They saw Richardson just throwing up those fuck it balls and, having some success with it. So that became something that they needed to take away so that wasn't happening to them, even though it might have been, 10 completions on the whole game. They're still like, all right, we know the Colts have got some dudes that can beat us over the top. AD Mitchell's fast as all hell.
Oh, and he had a great catch in that Minnesota game too.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a beautiful catch.
Yeah. So
they got guys.
They got dudes. The problem is, I think the consistency at quarterback, and Flacco's got that arm where he can just hum it downfield at any time. But I think there's been a pretty good effort by all the defenses that they've played since week 3 to kind of put a lid on that.
Yeah,
because we really haven't seen that big game from Pierce since week 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. He's still been a reliable, but stat it's 3 or 4 catches, 40, 50 yards. But that's one of the team leading. Like there's not and they're not using the tight ends at all. They've got Ogletree, they've got Mo, they've got Mallory, who had a couple of drops in a game, and I think that everyone kind of lost faith in Mallory after that. But man, that's another position that needed to be addressed. I thought Mo Alley Cox would be in the out, and I thought what's his face, Jelani Woods would be the guy, and he can't. This is now 2 seasons he spent on the IR, so we're probably not going to see him again. So they've. And people were clamoring, hey, we need to move up and get Brock Bowers, but it's so hard to prioritize. We needed defenders. I'm not saying that edge was our main priority, and they went and got Latu. It's like we should have moved up and grabbed Brock. It would have caught we would have been able to get anybody but Brock if we did that. But now you're looking at what he's doing in not so great of a team right now, and maybe we needed a Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I mean, y'all need somebody. I feel like there's 3 positions that y'all have been looking for as far as solidified tight end, corner 2, and
safety. We need corner 1 and 2. Juju can't stay on the field. I think Jalen Jones is a nice piece, but I don't know if he should be an every down starting corner. Maybe a 2, but yeah, they right now they need 2 corners.
Yeah. And what does Womack play?
He's corner. He was on the practice squad for a while. I don't know when I can't remember where they got him from, but I can't remember if they drafted him or what, but he spent his time on the practice squad, got elevated, and he looked good here and there, but he's not going to look good one-on-one with Jefferson. So they had Dallas Flowers who got ripped by Brian Thomas, and he had that pathetic dive, and a day later he was waived.
Yeah. Oh man, the dive that will live in infamy.
Oh yeah, that was my thumbnail.
Yeah, so far every AFC South team except for the Texans, I feel like, has had like a really embarrassing play that might outlive this season. Will Levis.
Oh, that looked like it was straight out of a movie. That
yeah,
like I downloaded the wrong movie.
yeah, literally. And then that dive, Saquon Barkley jumping backwards over the Jaguar.
Yeah, you don't want to ever be the guy that gets hurtled backwards on.
No.
I just can't imagine though if Barkley had hurtled and the guy just like, oh, I'll just stand up.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. That's not the best device in Barkley, but it was made a great highlight reel.
Yeah, dude. God.
Yeah, that was some shit straight out of like a NFL. What was that? Blitz or whatever that game was.
NFL Street.
Yeah, there we go. Old school game.
That was nasty. I love those games.
It was so much fun.
Apparently they revamped it, so I'm looking at trying to get like a what's the word I'm looking for? An emulator, so I can play the revamped game.
Yeah, I found like a N64 emulator on, I can't remember where I found it. I don't want Nintendo to come crashing down on me, but I don't know why. Sometimes I'm like, man, I remember that game. I want to play it. And I tried to fire up Diddy Kong Racing, and such a fun game. And it was like all I could find was like the Japanese version or something, and it was just, and it just started bogging my computer down, so I had to uninstall it. But yeah, I wish Nintendo would make all these games a little bit more accessible, but it's a little off topic.
Yeah.
Oh well. But yeah, it's this, like you said, I think this could be a winnable game, but I feel like they have to get a big lead in the first and just hang on through the second half. I feel like this isn't a team that's really built to come from behind. It seems like any time that the game, it's almost like Shane Steichen decides that we only need to pass the football. He just kind of completely goes away from the rush. After maybe one run that gets like 2 or 3 yards, it's just pass. Like you gotta let it work. There were times where Derrick Henry would get stuffed out, lose a few. It happens to all of them. But the thing is with Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, they're a home run threat every play. Every time they touch it, they could break it. It's like, so him touching the ball 13 times in a one-score game is just criminal.
Yeah.
And by touches, I don't mean like he needs to rush the ball between the tackles 30 times. No, I'm saying little dunk offs, wheel routes, stuff like that. Just 20 to 30 times should be that goal for Taylor every game. However you do it, I don't care. But it seems like in key positions like that third down, Trey Sermon was wide open for some reason. Flacco threw it deep to Pittman, which he looked like he got banged up on that play pretty bad. But Trey Sermon had the first down wide open. And I'm sitting here going, first of all, Trey's wide open. Second of all, why is Trey in the game on 3rd and 2? Like, where is this multi-million-dollar quarterback you just freaking signed? Where Trey Sermon is not really known for his hands either. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's had a couple of drops, but who on the Colts hasn't? He's still your best player on offense. Why would he not be there on a 3rd and 2? And why is it Trey Sermon? Why was it Goodson? I mean, I'm not saying that the play would have worked with Taylor, but why does he have this tendency on these key downs to pull his best players?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That never made sense to me. Unless you've got like such serious depth that there's not really a drop off. And I don't know if that's the case.
No. There's a big drop. I think they wound up releasing Evan Hull. I was pretty high up on him.
Yep.
He was a great pass catching back in college. Maybe he just didn't really, live up to the NFL standard. I can't say, he didn't get a whole lot of game time, but I feel like he'd have been better at pass catching than Goodson. I feel like he's a faster, more athletic runner than Trey Sermon. I don't think it would have hurt to put him behind Jonathan. I mean, there was one game where Trey Sermon averaged like 1.5 yards a carry. Would it have really hurt to give Evan Hull a go? I'm just, and of course, there's a lot of people that are arguing like, well, what in the fuck did Anthony Richardson learn from this game from Flacco? Well, he learned what not to do. Like there were open plays. Hey, look at the tablet and say, okay, that's what the defense is. That's what you should be doing is just sitting back there studying every single play that happens. And I hope that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
I hope he's putting in the time to learn. I hope he's using this time to get better. Like, yeah, that's all you can really hope from these guys. And I feel like if he's not, the Colts probably would have traded him. Like, if they don't feel like he's putting in the time to do it, Ballard has had a tendency to admit a fuck up and move on from it. So they obviously still see something in him. So no. I don't think that's the last we'll see of him, but
no, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
At least I hope not. He was with the 4th overall pick, man. You don't want a season and a half later, you don't want to see it already. Oh, well, shit. We got to start all over again. So yeah, the optimism is still there that he can develop into a much better NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he'll be the best. All I've been begging for is like 55 to 60% completion. That's all I've been asking for. There are a lot of winnable games if he hit that number.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the play's been there and they just haven't connected. So you kind of hope that it all gets worked out. They start figuring it out. And like you said, I mean, they've all been winnable. They've all been in it. You know, they just haven't been able to close. And I think that's going to be probably the case with Buffalo. But, you know, Josh Allen is so good and they've had such trouble with these mobile. I wanted to say, I think every game this year in our pick'ems, I've picked the Colts to win. So I've lost that bet 5 times, but but I think I'm changing course on this one. I think that Josh Allen is just too much of a dual threat quarterback for the Colts to be able to keep a lead, get the lead, hang on to the lead. And if they lose the lead, I don't see them being able to come back. I think, you know, between Cook and Kincaid and of course Allen, I just think that there's too much there that if they get a lead, and there are drives that I've seen, you know, Vikings, they had that great opening drive going. Jonathan Taylor gashed a couple of good runs, a couple of good passes, and then shoot themselves in the foot at like the Vikings 30. So it just seems like that they can't put together a complete drive, much less a complete game.
Yeah.
I hope they put it together. I hope that they prove me wrong. I'll be more than happy to eat crow, but they just haven't shown that they can do it. So I think I'm probably going to say the same score when we do this AFC South show. I want to hear your prediction
though. For me, Buffalo favored by 4, 47.5 over under. This one's tough. I'm going to say 27 to 22 Buffalo.
Weird. 22.
Yeah. I see a maybe like a 2-point conversion and then 2 field goals. Yeah, maybe a couple 2-point versions.
I'm going to say that the Colts, because like you said, the first half kind of always leans to the AFC South for some reason, then they kind of blow it in the second half. So I'm going to say that they have a slim lead going into halftime and just the wheels kind of fall off in the second half because the defense is on the field for too long as normal. I am going to say that Joe Flacco has a much better game than he had against Minnesota, but it's not enough. So I'm going to say Buffalo 31 and Colts 24.
Okay. I got that written down for this AFC South show, so we don't even have to worry about that later.
Yeah. I mean, we can repeat it. But...
Oh, yeah.
But, I think that's a good place to leave it off. If you're still here, about to hit the 45-minute mark. So while you're here, click the buttons. Smash the buttons. Do the thing. Like, share, subscribe. Help me hit that 100 goal. And catch us on this AFC South show. Well, we'll be talking about, of course, the entire AFC South. Do we have a guest on this one? Is it this
Oh, yeah.
episode or
Yeah, Jordan Dejani.
Perfect. Dejani from the Titans, right?
Yeah, he's a Titans guy.
Titans guy. So look out for that. Make sure you head over to this AFC South show on the Curtis Podcast Network. Check out Curtis on that Real Texas Team podcast. As always, we really appreciate all the support, comments. Make sure you interact with us. And I will see you for, hopefully, I'm wrong, in a Colts victory on Monday. So we'll see you then. As always, be good people. Thanks again, Curtis, for your time. I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Yep.
Y'all have a good week. Enjoy football Sunday. We'll see you after the game.
Go Tex.